Okay, it's time for us to get into something that is fundamental for any programming language with any computer system, basically anywhere in the world. We need to learn about asset pathing. And we've actually dealt with this a little bit when it comes to links and relative links, even when we're linking to an image that is on our own website. And we've always made sure that everything is in the same folder. But what happens when things are not in the same folder? How does that work? So let's go ahead and explore how we can move images and other links to other folders and how we can link back and forth all over the place. This gets into a lot of relativity. So you always want to sort of think of where you exactly are at this particular moment relative to where other things currently are. So really, we're just going to figure out how we can access files from other folders and how we can access files from folders that are subfoldered or parent folders and things like that. So I think the best way to really learn this is to really just dive in and get her done. So let's do that. Let's dive in and let's learn about asset pathing. Okay, so I just have VS Code open here. And what I'm going to do is View Explorer, and I'm going to open a folder. I'm going to open my website folder with all my HTML files in it. Cool, so we have all my HTML files in here. We've got a style.css, which is something we used, and we also have an image, which we can see here. So I'm going to click this icon here and just create a new folder. And I'm going to call this folder images. And I'm going to create a new file. And this file is simply going to be called asset_pathing.html. HTML5, we can keep all that stuff now that we understand what's going on with it. And we can say asset pathing is the title. Let's head on over to the body, and you can see that in my folder here, I've got asset pathing and I've got a folder called images. Now let's open up Finder. I head on over to my desktop, and I'll just make that smaller so this all fits in here. I have a folder on my desktop called screenshots, and I have one called website. Website is where all these files from this course have lived. And I now have a new folder called images. And inside of this images folder is nothing. So we are going to want to put something in there. And we also have asset pathing. So we want assetpathing.html to be able to link to an image that is in a folder. How do we do that? We only know how to link to things that are currently in the same folder, such as style.css or 800 by 300.jpg. That's all we've done. So let's go ahead and open up our editor, and let's create a new image tag. Now, because we know that if we see over here, the folder name is called images, all we have to do is type in images. And then we could put 800 by 300.jpg in here. Now, if we go back to Finder, images is empty. There's nothing in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 800 by 300, go into my images folder, paste it in there. And what I'm actually going to do is just rename this. So testimage.jpg. And let's go ahead in here and change this to testimage.jpg. And when I open it up in my editor, you can see testimage.jpg is in here. It's the exact same as the other image. I just copied it and I changed the name. So now when I save this, and I open up Firefox and open up this image, oh, hello, there it is. It works. Now, what happens if I wanted to link to a CSS file that's in a different folder? Let's create a new folder in Finder. Let's go up one directory. So I'm where all my other files are, including images. I'm going to create a new file, or a new folder rather, and I'm going to call it just CSS. And so you can see it in here. I also created it in here. So right click, new file, and we're going to call it style.css. And we're going to add a body in here. And the border is going to be 10 pixel solid black. And the background color is going to be Gainsborough. So we are somewhat familiar with this kind of CSS already. Now that does nothing for our page. We actually have to link it in here. So let's hit link. Rel is equal to your style sheet. That's important. And your href is going to be the folder name and then the file name. So css/style.css. Now let's open up Firefox and refresh. Hey, look at that. And so now we're getting into asset pathing. You are definitely 100% guaranteed to run into a problem where something doesn't load. So let's say we have a typo and we didn't call it style, we called it still. We missed the E and we didn't notice it. So we go back to our page and we refresh and we notice that our styling isn't taking place. Also, let's get rid of the E on test image. So we have a broken image and no styling, and you're thinking, well, I'm doing everything right. This looks right. And by the way, when you're knee deep in your own code, sometimes you cannot see your own typos. I probably have typos throughout this course that I haven't caught as well. It's totally normal. So you're looking at this and you're going test image.jpg and you got style.css. Why are these not loading? And you hit refresh over and over and over and over again. There's two ways to debug this. First one is you can view your source and you can actually just click on the asset and it says file not found. Well, if the file is not found, it means it does not exist. That means that exact file does not exist. So either your folder name is wrong or your file name is wrong or the file does not exist. Same thing with test image. You're going to get a file not found, or 404, some sort of message like that, a missing page. And the second way is we can go back into inspect element. We have an inspector, so once that's open, always hit refresh so you get the freshest version of your document object model. Go into your body and find your image. It says it cannot load the image. This one is basically telling you the exact same thing. Image is not found. And then it's up to you to basically say, why is that image not found? What's up with that? You can look at your code and go, oh, okay, well, test image.jpg does exist, but in here it's going images/test_imag. There it is. So let's go ahead and change that right in the DOM. Boom, there it is. Okay, the next one is style.css. And when we check this one out, this one doesn't say it can or cannot be loaded, but we just know it's not loading. So we can always test this one out too. Say, oh, I think there's a typo in there. I think it's actually called css/style.css. Hit enter. Boom, there's our styling. In other browsers like Chrome, you can sometimes actually just go into your console, make sure you have all of your error logging turned on. And when you refresh, it will actually tell you right in here that the image 404 does not exist, and that your file, or that your CSS file, your style.css, also 404, it was not found. So those are handy little tools to help you out with that. Now let's talk about a thing that people do all the time. People do this all the time. They think because we're using a folder, we can add spaces to it. So instead of images, we could use a folder name called my images. My images. Now there is a way to make this work, and honestly, I don't want to show you just because this is a terrible practice when it comes to web development. Is you do not want spaces in anything. You don't want spaces in your file name. You do not want spaces in your folder name. You do not want special characters or anything like that. So you don't want my asterisk images. You don't want a folder name that. You don't want anything like that. You want it nice and simple and lowercase. So if anything, it should be my_images. Or in this case, just images. So whenever you create a folder, make sure that it's lowercase, because that's a good practice. There are no spaces in it, because spaces will break your heart, and it's different if you're on Windows versus on Mac versus on Linux. You just don't want to get into that sort of problem. So make sure it's the same for everybody by making sure there's no spaces, no special characters, nothing like that. Just keep it boring. If it's boring, you're doing the right thing. Now let's say we want to go up one folder. So inside of our directory here, we're going to create another folder, and we are going to call this one pages, because I am creative when it comes to naming. So we have a new folder in here called pages, and we're going to create a new file. And this one's going to be, let's just call it test. Test.html, and let's do HTML5. Skip right to our body, and in here, we need to access an image and the CSS from a different folder. So at this point in time, if we look at our structure here, we have test.html, but we need to get into images and then grab test image, and we also need to get into CSS and grab style.css. So this is where it gets a little bit relative. So we need to move up a directory, over a directory, and then into it. And a better way of looking at this is we are currently in pages. So then we need to move up a directory to where everything is, and then into images and grab this one. And then for our CSS, again, we start off where test.html lives, move up a directory, go into our CSS folder and grab style.css. So let's give this a quick little run through. We need to grab a style sheet in here. And now we can't just do css/style.css because this thinks that there's a folder in our folder called pages called CSS, but there isn't. It's actually up one level. Now to go up one level, all we do is type .. And that means go up one level, and you can actually see VS Code sort of understood what I wanted to do here. So that means go up one level, go up one folder, go into the CSS folder, and then grab style.css. And likewise, for our image, we need to go up one folder, go into images, and then go and grab testimage.jpg. And so if I open up Firefox, let's close that down, and I'm going to go into pages and open up test.html. You can see this all works. And when we view the source, view the page source, you can see ... style.css, and you can actually even see it mapped in your URL bar where it says ... /css/style.css. What this is saying is basically we live in the pages folder right now. Get out of that pages folder, just move up one, and then go into CSS and then style.css. Voila, there it is. And that is how we move up and down from different directories. Everything is relative from where we currently are. So from wherever test.html is, we want to move up or down to grab testimage.jpg. We want to move, in this case, we want to move up one folder with ... and then down one folder to the CSS folder, and then grab the style.css file. That's really all there is to know about pathing, but this is incredibly important. And when you are just getting into web development, most people struggle with this. Not everybody, but most people definitely struggle with this. I certainly did when I first started. I can't emphasize enough how important this is, because this doesn't just affect HTML. This will affect eventually some of your CSS. This will affect your JavaScript. This will affect any Python you write. This will affect Java, CSS, all programming languages in the future. A lot of things are file-based. And so you need to know how to access files from wherever you currently are located. So your task for this video is going to be your task. Create a new .html file from scratch, please. Create a styles folder in the same directory wherever your HTML file lives. So make sure they're side by side. Create a new style.css, that's new style.css file inside of your styles folder. Your styles directory, folder and directory are the same thing. And then I want your HTML file to link to the style.css file. So link to your style.css file. You're going to need to use relative pathing. So we're not moving up a folder, so you're not going to use this. You are simply just going to write styles/style.css. Save and open in your browser. So save and open this in your browser or browsers if you want, and view the page source and make sure that that link is clickable. You can even add some extra styling inside of your CSS file. And when you do that, you should see the styling take place on your page as well. So that's how you're going to know that it's actually working. Once you have done that, head on over to that next lesson, and we are going to look at adding a little image up here. So instead of where it says document or the file path, we're going to add a little favicon like what you see in here.